Mm. Hopefully that looks a little bit better. And we can go ahead and get started. Make sure recording's going perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody to our final Trout in the Classroom webinar for 2025. Sad to say it is our final one of the season, but we have had such an awesome time getting to um, be out here with you guys in your classroom, setting up your tanks, helping monitor your eggs, as well as on screen teaching with you guys, and enjoying learning about our trout and raising them alongside you guys. This has been an awesome season so far, and we are super excited to get into our release era where we are releasing these trout into the river, the culmination of all of our hard work. We are super excited to be here. So we're going to get going here with our virtual Trout in the Classroom release webinar. Um, as last week's webinar, similar to last week's webinar, I'll have a few questions throughout the program. So if y'all have answers to that, please go ahead and put the answers to my questions in the chat. That way, you guys can, everybody can see those answers. And then any questions you guys have for me that you want me to answer at the end of the program, you can please put those in the Q&A portion, and that will help me see those questions separate from the chat answers. So we are doing our live release out at Oxbow Nature Study Area. Oxbow is located in downtown Reno. It is right off of 2nd Street in downtown, which makes it an urban wildlife refuge. This is a little bit closer up of where it's located. It is at the very end of Dickerson Road, kind of across the river from Idlewild Park, just a little bit down the way. And out at Oxbow, like I said, it's an urban wildlife refuge. It is a nature study area and an animal sanctuary, meaning it is a place for wildlife to come and find sanctuary away from the disturbances of life and cities and things like that. So we do have a lot of native wildlife that call Oxbow home. And so we're going to take a look at that and today, as well as how they might interact with our trout, or maybe how they wouldn't interact so well with our trout. And we're going to find some great habitat to release these trout into. So we started out at our egg phase. We have moved on through our alvin phase. Luckily, none of our fish are alvin anymore. They have lost those egg sacs of nutrients, and they are moving on to the fry stage. Our fish are in their fry stage now, which means they are big enough to be on their own in the river. They are just learning those adaptations to help them survive in the river, to eat, to stay safe from predators, things like that. This is when they're big enough to be on their own and find food and learn to survive. If we waited any longer than this to put the trout into the river, then we run the risk of the trout becoming too reliant on us as people. So, sort of like we raise dogs and cats in our homes, but we don't one day, once they're adults, decide to put them out on the street, right? Because they're reliant on us. They're dependent on us as humans. And so luckily these fry have existed off of those egg sacs for a few weeks now. And that this is the exact time that they would be out in nature learning how to find food for themselves. So that's why we're releasing them at this stage before they get too reliant on us as a food source, but still young enough where they're learning those abilities on their own. Following this stage, they're going to go into the juvenile stage. They're going to be teenagers out there competing and finding mates. Eventually, once they're adults, they're going to find those mates. They're going to spawn and they're going to reproduce. And then the final stage of life is death, and that is when the life cycle restarts. So the new eggs will be starting their life cycle from then on. All right, so our trout are ready to be released. Those of you that are participating in a live trout release, the day of the release, you will see us taking your trout and putting them into these little tubes. This is just to help us um, see our fish and take care of them while we are enjoying our field trip. And so at this stage, they're ready to go into the water on their own. But at Oxbow, we have multiple sources of water. We have both a river and a natural wetland pond. So we're going to look at both of those habitats and kind of determine what might be the best habitat for our trout to be released into. And so with that, we're going to check in with Aiden, who is down by the wetland pond, and will tell us a little bit more about how well whether or not this will be a good habitat for our trout.
Hi guys, I'm Aiden. Welcome to our wetland pond here at Oxbow. And this is a great habitat for many animals. And as you might see behind me at some point, there are some coots and ducks out today. And then we're going to be talking about the attributes of this habitat and why maybe this isn't the best place for our trout, but a great place for other animals. So if you look behind me, you see this water is very still. While this might be good for something like a duck who's bottom feeding and looking for different plants and animals that way, this is not going to be good for a trout since there's not enough oxygen in the water since it's not moving around. This water also is going to get a lot warmer in the summer as it's also, again, not moving, so the sun is going to be warming it up, and then the temperatures are going to rise, and this is going to be unsuitable for our little trout. And lastly, we talked a little bit about this, but our vegetation here. So this is not the correct food for our trout. This is great for many other animals, but not our trout. Our trout are going to be eating macroinvertebrates.
Right. Thanks for the check-in, Aiden. Now, this wetland pond is not necessarily a man-made pond. It is in an urban space. However, the pond was created through some somewhat natural formations that took place due to really one animal in particular. Now, if anyone has a guess as to what animal they might think could create a pond like that, please go ahead and put it in the chat for us. And then I might be able to show us a little evidence of this. Great. So I'm seeing a lot of answers for beaver, as well as some larger fish. So the correct answer is our beaver, our North American beaver. A lot of us got that right. Awesome work. So our North American beaver did create this pond. As you can kind of see here before on the left picture is where you would see that water exiting the pond. That's what it looks like when we periodically do pull these dams. And then on the right is not even a day later. And that shows you just how quickly these beavers can build up a whole wall. They will take sticks and mud and intertwine them until it essentially holds in the water they need, which creates this pond. So this pond is where they live. It's where their lodge is located. And so to maintain that habitat, they need water, right? And so they have to literally create their own habitat sometimes, which is one of the reasons that beavers are considered an ecosystem engineer or a keystone species because they create habitat. Now, some of the ways that beavers are so good at creating habitat like this is through some of their adaptations on their body. So they're herbivorous. They eat only plants, so that it's not a concern in terms of predators for our trout. However, our trout do benefit by these wetland habitats. While they don't necessarily live directly in them, these are great. Beavers create dams, which can be located in the river as well. And they are a great source of shelter for spawning and for protection for our trout. Now, here in the pond, they are creating these dams as a way to create habitat for themselves. And they do that through a couple of ways. First of all, you'll notice that skull in the very top left corner. That skull is a natural beaver skull. It has natural iron deposits on the front of their teeth, which is why their teeth are bright orange like that. It's all natural and it makes their teeth really, really hard. So iron is like a really hard metal. And so it's naturally made in their teeth so they can chew on wood. They don't eat the wood, but they do chew on it to create dams and lodges. Um, the other big adaptation they have is that those bottom teeth right there are going to grow an average of 4 feet every single year of the beaver's life. And so they actually have to physically wear down those teeth, so they chew on wood constantly as a way to keep their teeth in check for their face and sharp so that they can continue to chew. So um, this is not only a natural process for beavers, it helps create habitat not just for themselves, but for tons of animals. We're going to look at a few more of the animals that live out on our pond. But first, I do want to show you guys a quick game camera video. So out at Oxbow, we have what are called game cameras, which sometimes animals are referred to as game. And we put out cameras as a way to kind of not only monitor where the animals are in the park or what animals might be there, but also as a way to kind of monitor the habitat in a more natural way than us getting in there every single day and messing up everything, right? We can just leave some cameras out there, watch what naturally happens. That teaches us a lot about what's going on at the park and with the animals. I'm going to show you a quick game camera video of our beavers that we got a few months back. That's a good example of their fur right there and their tails. Hold on. So as you guys can see, it's a short little video, but what we can see is we have at least two beavers, potentially even a mama and a baby right there, because the one in the water looks a little bit bigger to me than the one out of the water. But you can see kind of how big they are too. Beavers are very large. The ones that we have, we're estimating can be up to 60 pounds. They can be even bigger than that in other countries. They're just consuming a lot and a lot of wood, but they are amazing swimmers. They are nocturnal primarily, so that's why we're seeing them out here at almost 4 in the morning back in November. But it is fun to see animals this way. I'll show you a few more as we go throughout the presentation. Another animal we have at our wetland pond is our muskrat. The muskrats live in swampy parts of the pond and they prefer cool environments. They mark their territory with a musk, which is why they are called muskrats. It's because they quite literally have a smell that they mark their territory with that a lot of other animals do not like and discourages them from hanging out there. They're omnivores, so the habitat at the wetland pond is absolutely perfect for them. They have things like reeds and cattails and pondweeds to eat, but they also have crustaceans and snails, things that might live in the very depths mud at the very bottom of the pond. There are some macroinvertebrates that do live in the pond that animals like a muskrat might eat. However, they are actually not the kind of macros that our trout would eat. Our trout prefer clean water macroinvertebrates, which we're going to learn about in a little bit. Um, Another animal that we have at our pond is our red-winged blackbird. They're beautiful birds that have these pretty orange-red wings. Um, they are they have a robust triangle-shaped beak that helps them eat both insects and seeds. On the left, you see a female bird, and on the right is a male. Um, and they use a method called gaping, where they use their beak to open up crevices in plant material to look for insects. So they're really good at finding food, especially in places like this. At the pond, we often see them standing on the very top of the cattails out there. Um, and they have kind of made that their own little habitat on the top of those cattails, and that provides them great habitat as well as great food resources. Now, waterfowl is another, covers lots of types of birds that live near or around the water or rely primarily on the water. On the right, the very right picture you have here is a black-crowned night heron, which we see often out at Oxbow at the wetland pond. Um, and they are most active at night. However, we do see them often during the day. Um, and they have this really cool, they, as you can see from the picture, they're really cool because they have bright yellow legs, but then that black and bluish kind of back down them. They're very tall and very large. Um, and you may see them foraging through these wetlands because, as you can tell from that beak, they are great at diving down and eating bugs or fish or crustaceans or anything that's kind of down in the muddy parts of the water. In the we have also up there a wood duck, which is what's considered a dabbling duck. On the pond, you will see what are known as dabbling ducks. So the one in the middle there is surrounded by what's called duckweed, which is a form of algae that ducks like to eat. And it sits right on the top. So dabbling ducks just swim around, they dabble around, they might kind of put their head under the water and bend down. But what they're not doing is fully diving under the water. That is a separate kind of bird or separate kind of duck that dives down. They typically live a little bit more on the river side of things, whereas our dabbling ducks have lots of algae to dabble on right there in the top of the water. Now, our educators have found a different habitat out at Oxbow. As you move along the trails, you'll get from the wetland pond over to the side where our river is at. So our educator, Sadie, is out at the river and is going to talk to us about whether or not the river might be a good habitat to release our trout into.
Hi everybody, my name is Sadie and now we're at the Truckee River. As you can see, this river is flowing very fast. This river flows from Lake Tahoe all the way down to Pyramid Lake, a whole 121 miles. That's a lot of room for our fish to travel. There's lots of oxygen, as you can see, in these big old bubbles that form around the rocks and the sticks. These rocks and sticks provide a great habitat and shelter from our current and also food in the river. The food that our trout can find are these macroinvertebrates here, nice little bugs for our trout to eat. As we can see, this environment is a lot better than our pond.
And again, that habitat being better for the river habitat being better for our trout, the pond habitat might be better for other species of animals that aren't so reliant on that form of oxygen. Now, these are some of those macroinvertebrates that she was just talking about, a little bit close up of what those look like. We also looked at them a little bit in our predators and prey webinar. Again, they are the invertebrates that our trout are going to be eating when they're about this size. Especially going into the spring, we'll start to see a lot of macros like mayflies, for example, start to kind of pop their wings and come out of the water. And so that is definitely when you know trout are going to be feeding, right? Because we have lots of their food source out and about and getting to the size where they can be eaten. Now, we have lots of other friends that enjoy the river besides our trout and our macroinvertebrates. Now, on the Truckee River, we have North American river otters. I'm sure a lot of us are used to maybe seeing sea otters more commonly in some of our nature documentaries, or if we've ever been to the coast, we might have seen a sea otter before. River otters are very similar, but they're much bigger. As you can see from that tail, they have a giant tail that helps adapt them to living on the river. They spend almost all their time on the river, which means they are swimming mostly upstream. And to do that, just like our trout, they need very powerful, strong tails. They will actually tuck their limbs under their body and propel themselves forward in the water. And doing this, they can actually reach speeds up to about 9 miles an hour, which is really 3 or 4 times faster than the average human can swim. They can also see underwater using a special adaptation called a nictitating membrane, which is a really big word, but it essentially is a third eyelid, and that serves like a pair of goggles for our otters that allows them to see under the water. I'm going to show you guys a quick another game camera video I have of our river otters kind of that we found at, or that we saw at Oxbow. But I'll have to kind of switch screens here because it wouldn't quite load from our page. Let me make sure the sound's on. Everybody can see that okay, hopefully. All right. So, uh, so as you guys saw there, we had a small little family of otters at Oxbow back over the summer. They come up often. They're always along the river, so we see them more periodically. They're not necessarily stopping at Oxbow long term like our beavers are, but they are definitely making their presence known, and we see their tracks all the time. They are, however, going to be some of the biggest predators to our trout. They are definitely great hunters. All right. Now, the next animal is our American mink. These are a carnivorous animal that lives along the river and eats a lot of fish and frogs as well as small mammals that it can find. They are carnivorous and they are known to eat prey that is a lot larger than they are. So they have been known to eat things as large as squirrels or maybe even another small mammal that's as big or larger than a mink itself. They are very vicious. They can also swim up to 100 feet underwater in search of food, so meaning they can really hold their breath for a very long time. Um, they don't have that nictitating membrane that allows them to see underwater like the otters do, but they are very elusive and very secretive. So they're very good at sneaking up on their prey. Um, I have seen one of these guys out at Oxbow swimming up along the river, so keep your eye out when you're out at the river. You might see one of these guys. There are other fish, lots of other fish found along the Truckee River. Lots of different kinds too that I want to point out that are not trout species are mountain whitefish, which are similar bodied to a trout, but they are kind of a white, silver, almost sparkly color in the sun. And then we have a Tahoe sucker, which sucker fish are very cute. And they're actually very, very old fish that have historically been here for thousands of years. And now we have a lot of cool variations of them based on the different lakes that have formed in over that time period. So we have lots of different birds on the river as well. In that picture on the right, you see an osprey, which are also probably the number one predator to our trout, as osprey are incredibly good fishers. They are known to have a success rate of 1 out of every 4 times they dive down, they are going to be successful in grabbing a trout, which is pretty unheard of for most animals. So they are incredible hunters, and they can eat up to 4 fish a day. Uh, we also have a goldeneye duck on the left that is more into that diving duck category of waterfowl. And then on the bottom we have cormorants, which they essentially stand in the sun to dry out, which is kind of a fun thing about cormorants. So you'll see them standing on the shores and enjoying the sunlight a lot. And they're also diving fishers. So they're going to dive down um, and uh, and look for fish and macroinvertebrates as well, primarily. Now that we have determined that the river is a good spot to release our trout, we are going to go ahead and have Laura walk us through releasing what it will look like to release our trout in the river.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura. We are here at Oxbow Nature Study Area. We are more towards the back of the park. We actually found a perfect spot here to release our trout here today. We did raise these trout back at our Endow office. All right, so right here I have Swimothy, our trout that we are going to be releasing using our trout slide. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our container and release Swimothy. Everyone wish good luck to Swimothy. All right, thanks for participating, everyone. It was a great Trout in the Classroom season.
Yeah, so that's what our trout releases are going to look like if you are going to have the opportunity to release your trout, whether it's at Oxbow or another park. We're going to have some great opportunities. Everyone will get a chance to send their fish down the trout slide, and um, and hopefully most of you will get the opportunity to actually release your trout in the river, because you guys have done such an amazing job raising them and working so hard to make sure that they are healthy and ready for the river. It sounds like we've had a lot of really great success this year, so I'm excited to see how everyone's trout are doing. That being said, as we kind of conclude our Trout in the Classroom season, we have raised plenty of trout as well in our own office, so we're doing it right alongside it with you guys. And so with that, wanted to close it out with just a fun little video of us releasing our trout. And again, thank you guys all for participating so much. Please feel free to put any questions in the Q&A. And thank you again for a wonderful trout. All right. Well, with that, again, thank you guys for joining us for our webinar series this year. We are so excited to see you guys out there. For anyone that is doing a live trout release field trip, we're super excited to get out there with you guys in the next couple weeks. Obviously, please let Jan or I know if you guys have any questions in the meantime. But other than that, I will move on to our Q&A. Thank you guys for joining. All right. Do you know what happens when a beaver's teeth get too long? Um, well, it definitely would cause them some problems. Honestly, I think if a beaver really and truly were to have its teeth grow too long, it probably wouldn't survive very long with teeth too long in its face. However, that's why they are super well adapted to chewing wood. They honestly will chew wood all day and night long. They sometimes it's with the purpose of contributing to a dam or to their lodge, but they will kind of just continue to make more and more dams. It's not They don't really seem to get tired of it, at least at Oxbow. So they luckily they are really good about keeping those teeth shaved down and just kind of chewing constantly. Do beaver teeth grow back if they fall out? I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you 100% certainty with that answer, but considering they are rodents, but falling under the mammals category, I'm going to go ahead and assume their teeth will not grow back if they were to lose them, just like our teeth. They're part of their skull, and so if they're to lose them, they probably won't grow them back. Mm. Do you know how many trout you've released over the years? Well, probably different. Uh, People would have different answers to that question. I have this is my fourth year doing trout in the classroom, I think, and in our office we usually raise, a couple hundred fish versus um, the whole the whole program raises thousands of fish. So, over the years, and I think TIC within the Department of Wildlife in Nevada has done Trout in the Classroom for I think close to 40 years. So thousands and thousands and thousands of trout have gone into the river over the years. This program was originally done in California with salmon, and it has been a part of Nevada Department of Wildlife's programming for a very long time now. So we have released tons and tons and tons of trout over the years. Luckily, that's what our agency does, so we are more than happy to be part of it. No problem. Thank you guys. We will see you guys next week. And some of you later this week. All right. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'll go ahead and wrap us up. But thank you guys again, and we will see you out there soon. Have a good week.